Hello and welcome to Dario Comics, and today's video will be called My Man Will Eisner. Yeah, and why Will Eisner is so important. Let's make it this way. This will be maybe a good thumbnail. So, I got here a Will Eisner comic book, maybe called graphic novel, and here Will Eisner sequential art. And let me talk about this. I know there's a bunch of YouTube videos where you see a people or person talking, and they're talking so freaking fast and loud that you're getting all the information crammed in your head. But it's not this channel. And the second disclaimer, I don't produce content. I don't want to spam the algorithm. I just make what I think could be important to you, even if it's just one person. So, Will Eisner, let's go for us in a second. Okay, let's go. So, Will Eisner, I don't know if I have a picture of him here, but he is a comic artist from, I don't know, well, I guess he served in the Second World War, and he started before. They offered him to draw Superman, but he went for his creator-owned The Spirit. And when The Spirit was going well, I think he went to World War II. That's also what this story is about. Like, he this is where the story starts in this book. He sitting here in this train, getting drafted to some training camp, and then getting shipped to Europe to fight the war. And while he's in this train, he remembers, he kind of, how do you call it? He's thinking about the past when he first came to New York with his brother. He thinks about his father, and the times were never easy. So this is really deep. This comic book is like, I got this it's from a German publisher. I'm an Italian living in Germany. So this is A5, and it's a pretty long graphic novel. I don't know what's the title in English of this book, but it's very long and it's really cool. Back in this comic book, there are also some like Will Eisner, The Spirit stories, but I don't really care about those. I tell you why, because like I'm not always into the action comics. I had a very troubled past and present. We'll get to that in a second. And so what interests me about storytelling is what I can see and learn from it, so that the future will be better. And Will Eisner had an eye for that. And he also had a pen and some writing chops to make it happen. I wanted to make this video just to present Will Eisner because he's very important. When 2014, 2015, I didn't even know Will Eisner existed. All I knew was like, as you can see there, I knew Frank Miller, I knew Mike Mignola, I knew Hellboy, Marvel from the 90s, and that's what I was getting into. I was getting into the awesomeness. But then once I dove deep, I started learning about well, how do I say, like my heroes had some heroes themselves. And so Frank Miller, Mike Mignola were my entry point, and then they quoted, I took from this one, from this one, from this movie, from this book, and this. And so I started going back. Like sometimes I find like Alpha Investments as a YouTube channel about Magic the Gathering and investing. And once I found Rudy, that's the guy's name, I checked out his older stuff. And it's so much videos, but some were very interesting, and I start looking them up. and I found new information. I trusted him more. He told me stuff I didn't know, and all of that was very great. So I learned about comic history, and sometimes people, when I say I draw comics or I make illustration, the first thing they ask, can you make a living from it? And the answer should be yes, but it's not always easy because we are not getting taught this stuff, and then marketing, and then it's a lot of work, and then it has to appeal, and maybe it has to appeal to masses or so, but that's all. Well, and then once I found Will Eisner, because I guess Frank Miller, one of my big heroes, he was big into Will Eisner. And so I thought, man, if Frank Miller holds up Will Eisner so good, I have to check him out. And another thing which I will just give you right now, today in 2020, everything is so catered to the masses and always rehashed, but the things that we like, or the things that I like Alan Moore, Watchmen, or Batman Year One, or Barry Windsor Smith, Weapon X, or Frank Miller's where is it, the Batman Dark Knight Returns, these classics, or even the Jurassic Park and other stories, are made by people who have learned from the past, who have found their taste and are doing new great stuff. It's not a rehash. It kind of is, because like you experience yourself in this world, and you try to make sense of it, and then it goes back into the story. But the language, or the things you have, like I'm talking English right now, or trying to talk English, like it's not my native tongue. My native tongue is German, and then my second native tongue is maybe Italian. But yeah, I'm communicating with you with what I have. And so this visual storytelling, which is comic, is like making you experience what he experienced, so that you learn from it. And yeah, along rambling on, but just for the importance. And Will Eisner was very, very early on one of the great people drawing. I guess Jack Kirby learned from him, and other people were under his umbrella and learned from him. He did quit sometimes drawing comics for going to war or helping out the military with instructional menus. He drew, like, soldiers didn't have to read some dry instructions, so he drew them with some sexy ladies, and they would read those, and they were well prepared for battle. And this is what I want to prepare you for battle, or for life in general. Sorry for the long rambling, but maybe I make timestamps. And he has also a book called Will Eisner Comics and Sequential Art, and I will go more into this and not so much into this one. This is a book about sequential art, and I have to say, I was reading like the first part, and it's really great. There's not much more to say. I don't know if you need it, but if you need it, or if you're intrigued or interested in it, here it is. It's called Will Eisner's Comics and Sequential Art. Maybe I go into this another day. But what I'm hitting you right now is this book. I don't know what's the story in English, but it starts with him going to war, or been drafted to war. I guess he drafted himself, and then he remembers his childhood as a young Jewish boy in New York, and they get beat up often, but by the Irish kids, by the Italian kids. So there's a lot of anti-Semitism going on, and a lot of hardship, like right from the get-go. Like I experience life as sometimes really tough because, like, I don't like the 9 to 5 job system. I think some or many things of the materialistic society leads to lies, disease, divorce, alienation, and a lot of other stuff. But there's a lot of good stuff also in it, but there would be a lot to fix in my eyes. And that's what I would do through storytelling, like help people understand and not repeat the same mistakes. And this book, I just wanted to take a look at it and just show you how beautiful it is and tell you how great the story is. But I took it up or started reading, and I was browsing through the pages, not even paying so much attention to the very beautiful drawings, but I was just soaking up the story because it was so great. Like, this is a great story about his childhood, how they have no money and they're trying to get by, and everybody tries to get by. And while everybody tries to get by in the 1920s and 1930s, everybody is working against each other, like the Italians, the Irish, the Germans. A lot of this guy has some communist ideas, and some other people burn down his boat manufacturing thing, and little Willie here, as with Will Eisner himself, tells from his viewpoint. And his father is an artist, and he's an artist, and they are very good at drawing. But even in those times, it's very hard to get by, and it's really harsh. Like, it's a really harsh environment, and the story is really great. It's told very good, and it is explained in a very great fashion. And then his mother says, like, she never had carefree times, and I will show you this for a very good reason if you're still watching, because she remembers her childhood, and then we go back to New York, 1880, and her father was never there. He was always traveling and left her mother alone with her children, and he was like, I don't know, I guess he didn't really care for her mother. So when she died, while they were young, he just imported her sister from the old country. I don't know where they are, from Romania or something like that. Yeah, they're from Romania. So he brings her back to the US and makes a few babies with her, leaves her alone with the children until he passes away, and then they're mother effing orphans, and left to your own device. I guess your body, your spirit, your soul will go into a narcissistic bubble. No one else will care for you. You have pretty much nothing to give to other people, and you just mind your own business. But this was this is family. But in these very harsh times, like one of her siblings gets kind of sold away, or they pay another family to take him in. But he then resorts to go back to the streets. Another sister gets kind of, I don't know, Wolfhard, like welfare. She gets traded or brought to welfare, and she gets to sleep there. She gets a bed and to eat, but she has to tend to the old people. And she and her big sister are working day and night to make ends meet, which is very harsh. Like, sometimes I think my life is a pretty big failure, But I come to realize maybe, and that's for sure, maybe I made here and there some poor decisions. Maybe I didn't or couldn't suck it up, or maybe I tried, failed, or didn't want to do stuff everybody else. I know sometimes your boy Zach ridicules comic artists that they give it all and don't make any money. And I hope I can turn this around and bring revenge for us artists. This is just a copy. I didn't draw it. I did draw it myself, but I just was studying someone else. So, or this is a commission for a friend. And yeah, like, you don't have to write, how do you say, like Will Eisner. You can also, and you know, this floats also my boat. You can draw something or make something like Mafia style, Michael Mann, Heat, which, by the way, Heat was researched and is, how to say, it's based on true facts. It's about a cop in the 90s and a guy he was chasing, and then one day they met at a cafe at night and they drink a coffee, and then they recognized that the other guy is the cop, the other guy is the gangster. But in that moment they realized that they're maybe kind of the same, because both had a difficult life and they traded away the easy stuff for their mastery, and one was crime and one was being a cop. But their private lives and their emotional lives were just not there, and it was about to eat them up, but they were married to their vocation, for good or for ill. Or you can do some post-apocalyptic monster western, and this floats my boat too. But let's get to it. Why I think each and every story and each mastery and is so important. And I will point out here and there some stuff, and I think I have seen some insights in our society, but maybe I'm wrong, so don't quote me all on that. So we're seeing here some very harsh times, and his mother remembers her sister always pretty much enslaving everybody else, and then crying at night, and then her man drinking himself to death at night, and she screaming all night from her migraine. So we see some very distorted lives playing out even in the past. And I have to point out, I'm also very much into movies, and I guess everybody that's into comics is also into movies, because we really are into stories. And now imagine, like, Will Eisner telling this story. He didn't have a movie team, but he could do this by himself with all the care and need he wanted to. He could tell the story. Wait a second. I'm there. Okay. Now my laptop has juice again. I will draw a Bella Thorne on my calendar in a second. So in August I have some really good inspiration. And then we get to see how his mother struggles as a young woman, like 17, 20, and she cares for her siblings, and of course she cares because it's family. She grew up with them. She shared a bed. She really feels, how do you say, the kinship. But the younger one gets himself always into trouble because he's poor. He starts to steal. This guy wants to send him to the police because, like, usually the little guy always just steals an apple, which is already a big crime. But this time he stole the money, and now they will send him into some orphanage for how do you say, children who are hard to raise. And so problems all the way, very separated people, everybody struggling. And the thing is, why I resonate with this is because, like, I mean, you don't have to share it, but like the world right now is also in a very chaotic state. I see a lot of people in my age like grinding, working themselves to death, which maybe is always the case in this world. But I think the stories I would make, let me show you in a second, I don't know. Like Robert McKee in his book explains that a storyteller cannot solve the problems of the world by just pointing them out and explaining them away. So I don't have right now a solution for it, but I have a comic called Land of the Redhead Woman and Mustache Man, in which I think that when we lost somehow a tribal structure or a family structure, that we lost our connection to ourselves and the land. And now that we don't have the land that is ours or the connection, this Chinchiro's, no, it's not Chinchiro's, Princess Mononoke talks also a lot about this. In every comic, like, where is it? There's also the comic, another comic by this guy. It's always about environmentalism, tribalism. So it's, and also Chinchiro's, I don't know, what's the whole movie called in English? In German, it's Chinchiro's Reise ins Zauberland. It's always, a good story will always bring you back to some universal truth about how to live a better life. And here Will Eisner really hits it home. I will try to wrap this now up, but yeah, she tries to hold the family together, to care for her younger siblings, but I guess it's kind of not possible. And I've seen similar things, similar themes of this book play out in my own family, which would make me kind of the Will Eisner generation. And my mother went through some similar stuff, like my grandpa went to war in the Second World War, and then my father at 18 was sent to Germany to work here in the industry and sent back home money. And my mother came with her parents because they had to flee, because my father was my grandfather from the mother was a fisherman, but in the winter they didn't have enough money, so he kind of got into shady business, but then it backfired and they sunk his fisher boat and he had to flee with his family, and my mother was left alone with her siblings. So very dramatic stories, but very common. And this is what sometimes I don't say despise. I love the superhero comics, but I think that if artists can make time for it, they really should produce some art that changes the world. Doesn't have to always land, but it's good to produce that work. And this is the oldest sibling of her mother, and she tries to beg him to help her smaller siblings, but he's so narcissistic. He's not even Jewish. He made himself a Christian because he can only attend medical school or med school and work where he works if he's not Jewish. So he kind of, how do you say it, divorces his family and goes his own way. And so she is left to her own devices. The other brother is also in a very unfulfilling job and life situation, and everybody is struggling for himself. And yeah, she's just like, it's going bad for everybody. Somebody wants to marry her because he's a Jewish dentist. He wants to go to the Bronx, but she doesn't marry him. And so she stays 27, and then finally she marries Will Eisner's father. And yeah, it's always trouble in New York. And Will Eisner is very mad at his father for doing all those things, and he listens to his mother, and then we get the story of his father, Wien in 1910, and how he doesn't want to go to the First World War, and there are a lot of people trying to not get involved in the war, and someone says, yeah man, we have to go to the Communist Party, and some other says, okay, we have to join the right wing. And his father is also very artistic. He's just an artist. He just wants to draw. And then somebody sends him to a doctor. This guy says, hey man, Willie, or his name is, I guess, not Samuel, but Shmuel. I don't know how to pronounce this, but he sends him to a doctor, and this doctor enables people or puts a needle in their eyes so they don't get drafted to World War One. And yeah, some pretty horrific times, and I don't know where this is going. I knew that when I read it, I was very inspired to be kind of grateful for where I am now, that it's, I guess, normal to face hardship, but this also told me to kind of make the best out of life, and that when you write a story, that you can also write a personal story to share those experiences or viewpoints with the world. And it's maybe good to have here Princess Mononoke, because she also stands for nature, tribe, and those things. I will push those agendas, because I think we have lost the way. Everything we're chasing now is bound to look good at the outside and then crumble at a certain point into some very bad shit. So, my man Will Eisner, I hope I could inspire you. I didn't want to make a 27-minute video, but that's what it was right now. I hope you got something out of it. Check out Will Eisner. If you're getting into comics, please follow your heroes, dive deep, try to get an overview. Don't get lost only in information, but sometimes it's good. Like this morning I was watching something about Michael Mann and Heat, and I realized Michael Mann had done Heat roughly 10 years before as a TV show or TV movie, and then he did it again with Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. So sometimes good things take time. You cannot beat all the evils in the world, but you can produce a seed that one day maybe will overgrow the bad seeds. See ya.